A shiny hunting challenge I've had my eye on for a while now is the Shiny Generation Quest. The first YouTuber I saw take on this gauntlet was Shiny Collector, where you find shiny Pokemon from every generation that they appear in. I knew that if I were to attempt such a thing, there would only be one real candidate, my clear frontrunner favorite Pokemon, Scizor. Not only are they my favorite, but Scizor has the relatively uncommon distinction of being able to originate not only from every generation of Pokemon, but being able to potentially carry every single origin mark as well. Introduced in Generation 6 with Pokemon X and Y, origin marks are small icons that communicate which set of games a Pokemon came from. These were originally used as a way to prevent transferred Pokemon from competing in tournaments and sidestep the gnarled issue of rare transfer exclusive moves becoming relevant in competitive play. This of course had its own set of issues, like event Pokemon being the only way to get certain moves and abilities that were available in previous generations. The commentators in the 2014 World Championship Finals even comment on how Jody using Cherish Ball Tyranitar indicates that it could potentially have Ice Punch, a previously tutorable turned event exclusive move that it wouldn't regain until Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire.
Paralyzed, huge protects coming out from Sajin, blocking both the Ice Punch and the Will-O-Wisp and getting the paralysis on that Scarfed Tyranitar.
Yeah, excellent play there. He probably noticed the Cherish Ball previously, knowing that this Tyranitar is from that promotion. Only way you can get Ice Punch, so also knows there's no egg moves on this Tyranitar, so he gets some useful information there, and also makes a fantastic play by slowing it down.
More directly relevant to our purposes, by way of its pre-evolution Scyther, we can not only hunt a shiny Scizor from every generation of Pokemon, but also one with each game-specific origin mark as well. And if there's a full set of something in these games, I can't resist collecting all of them. So with our mission set, let's turn our attention to the beginning of Pokemon with Generation 1. While shininess in the entire Scizor species wouldn't even exist for another few years, it's still very possible to hunt a shiny Scizor from the Generation 1 Kanto games. In the first two generations, each Pokemon has a set of determinant values, or DVs, ranging from 0 to 15 in each stat, which control how well a specific Pokemon will perform in each area. This is extremely similar to the individual values, also known as IVs, that have been in use from Generation 3 onward. One key difference from IVs, however, is the correlation between DVs and shininess. If a Generation 1 or 2 Pokemon has a DV of 10 in Defense, Special, and Speed, and an Attack DV of 2, 3, 6, 7, 10, 11, 14, or 15, that Pokemon is a shiny, even if it isn't visible unless traded to Generation 2. And if we multiply up the 1 and 2 of having one of those attack DVs, and then the 3 1 in 16s to have specifically 10 in the 3 other DVs, we arrive at exactly 1 in 8192. Now it may be unsurprising to learn that Generation 1 is poorly programmed on this front. The wild encounter system of all Generation 1 games is coincidentally bugged in such a way that not only are some sets of DVs not possible to encounter, but the set of impossible DV combinations for regular wild encounters includes all 8 shiny DV spreads. Pokemon encountered in Generation 1 via tall grass, surfing, and caves will never have the DVs necessary to be shiny, leaving gift Pokemon, legendary encounters, and fishing as the only encounter methods that can potentially produce a shiny. While there are mods out there like Nora in the Future's incredible shiny indicator and RNG patches, or glitches like fossil conversion for otherwise unhuntable Pokemon, Scyther needs no fancy methods and is purchasable directly from the Celadon Game Corner, a reputable establishment with fewer than 2 secret criminal hideouts beneath the floor. But before we go spending our 6,500 hard-earned coins on any old Scyther, we need to go over how we'll know when we've bought the right one. Hunting in Generation 1 is a lot less like traditional shiny hunts and more like reading off the winning lottery numbers and seeing that you are 1 digit off from the jackpot. Blue Moon Falls, as it so often is in these videos, is a goldmine of a website for niche pursuits in Generation 1 and 2 Pokemon, and has a tool that will list the exact stats that each of the 8 possible shiny Scyther can have, and luckily at this level Scyther always has the same stats for each of its DVs. The defense, speed, and special DVs will always need to be 10, and so they remain the same across all 8 possibilities. Attack varies the most, and if we see a Scyther with an HP value other than 82 or 86, we don't even have to go into its summary to check the others. Because the HP DV is calculated from the other DVs, anything other than these 2 numbers can't possibly be shiny. But with the full 1 in 8192 shiny rate looming in front of us and our winning lottery tickets laid out, there's no way forward but to begin putting in resets. I think that's a shiny? 82. They all match. Yeah, I think that's our shiny Scizor. Okay, that was faster than Darkrai, which was my previous fastest full odds hunt, so okay, I guess we're done with Generation 1. Well, after what is now my fastest 1 in 81.92 hunt, and hopefully a good omen for the pace of this challenge, which, for the record, I thought was going to take me well past the release of Legends ZA, we can trade Scizor to Pokemon Crystal to see her properly shiny glory. Having Scizor here in Generation 2 is more than just so we can see her shiny sprite, however. As it turns out, having shininess tied so closely to DVs means that with the introduction of Pokemon breeding, shininess is also a hereditary condition. Let me explain. When you breed a Pokemon egg in Generation 2, the opposite gender parent passes down the defense DV exactly as it is. If female Scizor with a defense DV of 10 breeds with a male Scizor with a defense DV of 15, every male egg will have a 10 defense, and every female egg will have 15 defense. The special DV is also passed down. However, there is a 50% chance that the game will either add or subtract 8, adding if the DV is 0 to 7 and subtracting if it's 8 to 15. In our above example, if a female Scizor has a special of 10, half of the male eggs will also have a 10 in special, and half of them will subtract 8 for a special DV of 2. On the other hand, if our male Scizor has a special of 7, half of the opposite gender female eggs will inherit that 7, and the other half will add 8 for a special of 15. The keen-eyed may have already realized that this means that the opposite gendered children of a shiny Pokemon have an increased chance to be shiny themselves, with their defense always being 10 and their special having a coin flip's chance to be 10 as well. Because half of the possible shiny attack DVs result in a male Scizor, the shiny rate with a shiny parent is extremely high, stacking up the 1 in 4 to get a shiny attack DV of the gender that inherits from the shiny parent, a 1 in 2 to have a special DV of 10, and the final 1 in 16 to have the required DV of 10 speed results in an overall 1 in 128 shiny rate for eggs produced this way. One final question that arises from this is why not just use 2 Pokemon that can pass down the 10 defense and 10 special DV, but Game Freak actually planned for that. If 2 Pokemon have the exact same defense DV and their special DVs are either equal or differ by exactly 8, they will never produce an egg, presumably as an anti-inbreeding safeguard. While there's much more to the can of worms that is shiny egg breeding in Generation 2, including using shiny Gyarados to pass shiny DVs across egg groups, or breeding Ditto or Pokemon with extremely skewed gender ratios to produce eggs with shiny rates as high as 1 in 64, since that won't apply to this quest, I'll link to and encourage you to watch CannedWolfMeat's more in-depth breakdown of this mechanic. Returning from our biology lesson, we can place our shiny Scizor together with a male non-shiny Scizor with a different trainer ID in order to secure the highest possible chance that we receive an egg. Generation 2 was very stingy with the egg rates compared to the rest of the series. Having the same species and different trainer IDs in Gold, Silver, and Crystal gives a 31.25% chance to produce an egg, with the steps the player must take between each roll varying randomly from 1 to 256. For comparison, the best egg rate in Generation 2 is only slightly better than the worst still compatible egg rate of 20% from later games. Compounding this, overworld abilities like Flame Body and Magma Armor that speed up the egg hatching process haven't been invented yet, which makes eggs a truly glacial shiny hunt compared to the later games in the series. This isn't actually the first time I've bred shiny Scizor from Generation 2. I did it once to play Clear Cut Challenge on Stadium 2 with shiny Scizor using the N64 transfer pack, and another to transfer up to the mainline series in Ribbon Master as a Scizor, and so I was bracing myself for yet another triple-digit Generation 2 egg hunt. That is a smart strategy, Reggie, using the Pokédex's registered minimum and maximum sizes to check if you have a size mark in the batch. Yeah, they lock you off from the last 3 boxes for the required catches. The Dialga Palkia at Temple of Sinnoh, and then the Origin Dialga Palkia slightly after that, and then also Arceus. Yo, that was so fast! What the heck? $28 eggs for a 1 in 128? Okay, I guess I'm just speedrunning. I thought, legitimately, I thought this challenge was going to take me into, like, I planned for the challenge to take me into the release of ZA. And now we're just like, we're on to the methods. Like, we already have Gen 3. Like, I might be done with this, like, before August ends. Okay, I guess we're done with Gen 2. With 2 hunts on the side of well under odds, I was bewildered by the pace we were setting on this challenge. But it wasn't time to celebrate just yet, as we now face the tricky task of evolving Scyther into Scizor. Our Generation 1 Scyther will remain unevolved for now, as her Met location would be set to Johto if we were to evolve her here and lock her out of her home game. Crystal helpfully gives you 2 metal coats, one on the SS Aqua and one held by Maggie the Magneton traded by an NPC. I, however, have already used these metal coats when trying to get the Pokédex entries for Scizor and Steelix, and so our only recourse to get more of them is to steal one off of a wild Magnemite using the move Thief, with a whopping 2% chance for any given Magnemite to hold one. The best encounter rate I could find for them was on Route 6 over in Kanto. By leading with a level 14 Pokemon and having a Repel active, Magnemite goes from a 20% encounter all the way up to 57.14. Combined with the 2% chance to hold a metal code, and we have an approximately 1.14% chance to find what we're after on any given encounter. Magnemite does have a chance to run away, so we'll need to make sure our Thief user is faster than them. The wild Raticating Granbull, however, can still outspeed us, but by stocking up on Pokédolls we can keep them at bay. After what feels like a longer hunt than it took to actually find the shiny egg, we managed to yoink our prize off of a Magnemite right before it heads for the hills. Handing our precious cargo off to Scyther, all it takes is one trip through the 3DS's simulated link cable to get our first proper Scizor since beginning our quest. Generation 3's Pokémon Colosseum is the first game where we can hunt Scizor directly instead of evolving it from a Scyther, as it's available in the Japanese version's Card E-Room where e-reader cards can be scanned to find bonus trainers and snag additional Shadow Pokémon. While hunting Shadow Pokémon is perhaps even slower than the methods we've already used for Generation 1 and 2, this particular hunt is one I've already done 3 years ago, giving us our pseudo-mascot of the channel, Toast. But yeah. We used the Pokéradar to find 2 shiny Togepis in Pearl, and so we technically have them. I just need to evolve one. Okay. We're done. We got it. Oh. There it is. We did it. All we had to do was get the dual hunt going. Speaking of whom, while looking for naming conventions to center this challenge around, Quick Panic suggested that we use the names of various toasts and toasted dishes. Going back to our previous two shinies, I named our Generation 1 Scyther Bruschetta and gave Generation 2's Scizor the name Avocado. Moving on to Generation 4, this was one I knew I could do within an afternoon because here we get access to the Poke Radar, my all-time favorite shiny hunting method, mostly due to the fact that I'm really good at it. I'll leave the specifics of how this shiny method works to my past self and link to my guide, but the basic gist is that with a little luck and by picking the right shaking grass patches 40 times in a row, we can find sparkling grass that will guarantee an encounter with shiny Scyther. Having radared every single Pokemon that can be found with the Poke Radar, I already knew exactly where Scyther spawned. I even radared one on my flight to Anaheim for Worlds just so I could trade a shiny of my favorite Pokemon to Micah the Brave at Disneyland. Positioning ourselves in the grass on rainy Route 215 in the morning, we have a 15% chance of encountering Scyther to start our chain before we're off to the races. Yippee! The Poke Radar continues to print shinies. Go to Nest Ball here. All right. What kind of toast is this? You know what? Quick was talking about it earlier. This is butter toast. With Butter the Scyther caught, the matter of evolving her is much simpler. Having radared and by extension caught 40 each of Magnemite, Bronzor, and Beldum, all with a 5% chance to hold a Metal Coat, I have plenty of them to spare. Entrusting one to Butter and trading her to Heart Gold to evolve into our Generation 4 Scizor. Generation 5 poses a unique challenge, as Black, White, Black 2, and White 2 have no encounterable Scyther, let alone Scizor. While Unovan Scyther did exist in the form of Dream World and events, those methods were shiny locked. So finding a shiny Scizor from this generation will require one of the most famous shiny hunting tools, the Masada method. Since I have Japanese copies of Platinum, it doesn't take much doing to set up multiple Generation 5 games with opposite gendered pairs of English and Japanese Scyther to activate the 5 additional shiny rolls for each egg. And this brings the approximate shiny rate to 1 in 1,365. My White 2 game also has the shiny charm, so with the 2 additional rolls its shiny rate jumps up to approximately 1 in 1,024. One fun thing that using eggs allows us to do is to pick a fun Met location for this particular Scizor, even ones that normally can't have Pokemon encounters. To do this, we first stockpile the eggs in the PC, whose shininess is determined when we pick them up. After saving, we can start opening them up to see if the Scyther inside happen to be shiny. There it is! Well under odds. And yes, that is that's the game with the shiny charm. With our shiny Scyther egg identified and after resetting the game, a quick scroll through the list of Unova Met location reveals a couple funny options. So heading to Route 9, we can hatch Scyther again inside the department store, giving us what may very well be the world's first shopping mall Met location shiny Scyther. And Absolblog's Pokemon suggested the nickname idea Texas, one of my favorite kinds of toast and a perfect fit for a Scizor from Unova. There you can see shopping mall. The metal coat we need to evolve him can either be found in Chargestone Cave or Clay Tunnel, and evidently I picked one of them up at some point as we already have it in the bag ready to go. Attaching it to Texas and trading him to evolve into our shiny level 1 shopping mall Scizor. Oh hey, editing Toasty here. So in my off-stream time I've been hatching the remaining Scyther eggs so I can send them to Bank to farm BP. And it turns out one of the eggs on the black cartridge was also shiny. I left them unhatched for now so I can pick out a good Met location, so if you have any suggestions where to hatch it, let me know in the comments. Already into the 3DS era, and Generation 6 Scizor is already within sight as this is the second game where we have access to our wonderful Pokéradar. Colosseum version has some new idiosyncrasies that I explained in a separate video, but the main concept is exactly the same, requiring 40 encounters in a row to maximize the chance of a sparkling patch and a shiny Scyther. Unfortunately, Colosseum is much less amenable to Pokéradar chaining, with very few routes having the ideal conditions. This incomplete patch of purple flowers is the best Route 21 has to offer, so we'll have to position ourselves a bit strangely while radaring and hope that our shiny patches don't get eaten by the empty parts of the patch. Yo. Gen 6, super quick. Yeah, Poke Radar, I am quite good at. Alright. So this is obviously French toast. X and Y's metal code is found in the Pokeball factory in this weird little corner. After grabbing it and giving it to French, a trade to Omega Ruby secures our Generation 6 Scizor. Since Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are in the same generation and have the same origin mark as Kalos, we don't need to pick up a Scyther from those games, coincidentally making Hoenn the only main lane region we won't be collecting a Scizor from. Up next is Alola, and this region's main shiny hunting method is SOS encounters. By encountering a Scyther from the bushes on Pony Plains, we can lower its HP and make it nervous with an Adrenaline Orb to get it to sometimes call for help. This then has a chance to summon other Scyther to its side, and racking up successful calls will give us 4 additional shiny rolls after 11, 21, and 31 Scyther. With Shiny Charm as well, our shiny rate caps at 15 shiny rolls, approximating to a 1 in 273 shiny rate. As for how we set up this encounter so that both our and the enemy Pokemon last that long, that's where this gets a little complicated. So the main issue we face here is that Scyther has a call rate of only 3%. Using an Adrenaline Orb and lowering it to 1 HP, we can get a 10x multiplier for a call rate of 30%. From here, we can't raise the call rate, but we can raise the answer rate. Normally, a Pokemon's answer rate is just 4 times their call rate, in this case, 12%. But there are a few multipliers that can apply here, most of them out of our control. Namely, if Scyther is called for help multiple turns in a row, giving a 1.5x multiplier, and if Scyther's previous call for help wasn't answered, it gets a 3 times multiplier. The last two that are under our control are our 1.2 times multiplier if the Pokemon we have out has the ability Unnerve, Pressure, or Intimidate, and a 2 times multiplier if Scyther was hit by a super effective attack and lived during the current turn. While there is the potential of using something like Aerolate on Mega Pinsir to turn False Swipe into a super effective attack, getting a Pokemon with an unsettling ability to the front was much easier. Our ideal setup is to get the battle to a state where both Pokemon can't run out of moves, while also having some sort of passive healing for our catching Pokemon that doesn't use our ability or item slot. To achieve this, I led the battle with Exeggutor, who has the hidden ability Harvest. Using Skill Swap to give it to the Wild Scyther and Bestow to hand off a Lepa Berry, With this combination, Scyther will have a chance to find Leppa berries at the end of each turn, making it extremely unlikely to run out of moves. Next, I got Scyther nervous enough to call for help and used a skill swap Mewtwo to pass off the ability Pressure. Of the three, Intimidate would have been the best as Unnerve blocks Leppa berry consumption and Pressure causes Scyther to run out of moves faster. But with infinite Leppa berries and Stantler being the only Pokemon I know of that can pass Intimidate to the opponent by itself, I went with the Mewtwo I had already caught rather than train up Stantler for one battle. I then sent in a first Smeargle to use Aqua Ring and Ingrain, two moves that provide passive healing at the end of each turn, with Ingrain having the additional effect of preventing switching out. Baton Pass still works, however, and so by using it we can pass the two passive healing statuses to our main Smeargle. Using Skill Swap to take pressure back from the second Wild Scyther for the permanent 1.2 times answer rate, we can use X Attack, X Defend, and Roto Boost to crank up our stats. And with all of that setup out of the way, there's nothing left but the messy business of mowing down Scyther in search of the shiny. There we go. You were right, Liar King. One of these days we will get the shiny. Goodbye, Harvest Scyther. Now I'm going to skill swap Pressure to the shiny so that way they don't lose a bunch of power points for no reason. Now, I don't have Roto Catch, so let's see how this goes. Now, while there is a dish called Toast Hawaii, which would be perfect theming for Alola, it's actually a German invention. Naming this Scyther Burnt, which was a fate I surprisingly avoided during my own trip to Hawaii for last year's Worlds, we can find the metal coat we need quite nearby on Pony Gauntlet. Bafflingly, this wasn't here in the original games, but Scizor is still part of the Alola Pokédex, meaning that before these games came out, if you wanted to evolve Scyther, you had to steal the item from a wild Magnemite, Skarmory, or Beldum. But with the Ultra games having no such weakness, trading him over, we now have our first Scizor from Generation 7. The strict generational positioning of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee was once a matter of fierce debate among scholars, but most seem to agree nowadays that it's part of Generation 7, with Sword and Shield being the start of Generation 8. However, unlike all Generation 6 games that had the same origin mark, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee have one of their own. One slight issue, the last time I shiny hunted in Let's Go was for a Tentacool so I could Ribbon Master it to go along with a plush I bought for a single gag in my Generation 2 decorations video. And that was hunted in Let's Go Eevee, as that's the one I bought for transferring Pokemon from Go back when that was something Home couldn't do. Scyther, however, is a Let's Go Pikachu exclusive, and so after getting our opposite version we can play up to Fuchsia City, which is the first opportunity we have to find Wild Scyther on the nearby Route 15. This is also where we get access to the Go Park, which we can use to bring over the Pokemon we need for our Pokédex, catch them, and then make a pit stop in Celadon City to pick up the Shiny Charm. The main shiny hunting method in the Let's Go games is the catch combo. By catching the same species over and over again without any of them running, a bunch of nifty benefits will unlock, including boosts to the spawn rate of the chained species, the spawn rate of rare species like Chansey, and additional rolls for more extreme sizes. This is great because Scyther has an extremely low spawn rate of only 1%, so the up to 50% increase in spawn rate is extremely helpful for actually being able to string together catches in a reasonable amount of time. Actually getting the catch combo started to be able to do that though, that's where our secret weapon comes in. See, the Go Park isn't just useful for bringing Pokemon to the main series, it's also a perfect environment for starting a catch combo if you have a bunch of the same species in Pokemon Go. For the past year or so, knowing that I wanted to do this at some point, I've been catching every Scyther I could get my hands on, even asking all my friends at Worlds to trade them to me to bolster my collection. And so we can send 29 Scyther from Pokemon Go, lined up and waiting to be caught in the Go Park. While the maximum encounter rate boost is at 31, this is more than enough to get our catch combo started, and as a bonus serves as practice for the finicky motion controls we'll be using to catch every single one. The best part of all this is that if we don't save as we leave the Go Park, should the unthinkable happen and our catch combo breaks, we can reset the game and all 29 Scyther will be right there ready to start the process over. As a final piece of the puzzle, using a lure will give us an additional shiny roll and increase the spawn rate of wild Pokemon. And combined with a catch combo of 31 and beyond giving us 12 rolls and the shiny charms additional 2, we have 15 rolls for a shiny Scyther, bringing our shiny rate to approximately 1 in 273, the same rate as for the SOS encounter. We can't just park ourselves at 31 and wait for the shiny to come to us, however. I mean, we can, but that would only give us the regular 4 rolls. The bonus shiny rolls only apply to the next Scyther to spawn after a catch, and this sometimes means ignoring other Scyther that have spawned while waiting for a new one to take the bonus shiny rolls before we catch another. Luckily, as our catch combo climbs, we get tons of candy with each capture, and while these only sell for a measly 10 each, the massive amount of drops means that this method is remarkably self-sustaining, with the money from selling Mighty Candy and Scyther Candy outpacing the money spent on Great Balls and lures. All that remains is to catch Scyther reliably without them running. Thankfully, Pokemon won't attempt to run until you've hit them with at least one ball, but every Pokemon becomes more likely to run as our catch combo increases. According to Anubis, every Pokemon that isn't Legendary or Abra normally starts each encounter with a flee rate of 242. After they break out of the first ball, they will begin checking if they should flee after breaking out, and every 30 seconds you're not in a menu. To do a flee check, they roll a number from 0 to 255. If it's higher than their flee rate, they will do a special attack animation indicating that they're about to run away. You can tell this apart from a regular attack animation by the different movements, and by the target ring not disappearing. The flee rate number they have to roll above is also reduced each time they break out. The worse your throw was, the more it drops. An excellent throw won't reduce it at all, A great throw will reduce it by 5, a nice throw by 10, and an unrated throw by 20. Flee rate is also reduced by 2 for each Pokemon in your catch combo, up to a maximum of minus 242 at a catch combo of 121. Once we're at this point, the Pokemon will have a 255 and 256 chance to flee at every given opportunity, meaning if you want to keep your catch combo, you have little more than your first throw with each encounter. Mercifully, when you catch your 100th of a species in the Let's Go games, subsequent encounters will be much easier to catch, and we can often get Scyther in a single Great Ball with proper technique. And as long as we run before they do, we can keep our catch combo going strong long into the high 300s.
Yo! There it is. Oh, the higher catch rate ball takes priority. That's fine. Did not know it was based on who had the better ball. Because I always thought it was the main character ball that but that's just because we were using a Great Ball and Pokeball earlier. But there we go.
Since Kanto is based on Japan, I decided to name this Scyther Ogura, which isn't a dish that comes from the Kanto region but fits our toast naming scheme perfectly. And hot on his heels is our next origin mark, Pokémon Go. Having caught my fair share of shiny Scyther in Go, even having a shiny Scizor with the best buddy ribbon, it's a simple matter to send one over through the Go Park as well. Here, with no risk of them running away, we can use a Premier Ball to differentiate him from Ogura. And with some nudging from Toxic, our resident bug enthusiast in chat, we can name him Torta and have claimed 2 more future Scizors for our collection. Into Generation 8 now, and this generation has 3 different origin marks. One for Sword and Shield with the Galarian League logo, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl with Arceus' triangle that represents Sinnoh with the 3 lakes and Mount Coronet in the center, and Legends Arceus with Arceus' rings. Sword and Shield is finally our second game in the series where Scizor exists independent from its pre-evolution, but only in 2 specific spots on the Isle of Armor, one in front of the Tower of Darkness and one in the Training Lowlands. These Pokemon that pop up on the overworld in fixed spots are called fixed symbol encounters, sometimes also called strong spawns or wanderers. Which Pokemon spawns is usually dictated by the current weather in that area each day. Scizor here only spawns specifically during sandstorms, so it can only be hunted during very specific dates. Most fixed symbol encounters in wild areas also only spawn once per day, so we'll have to get a little tricky with how we shiny hunt them. The first step is to find the spawn point for our specific wanderer and remember where it pops up. Next, we knock out the Pokemon in that spot, even if it's not the one we're looking for. Without leaving the current area, we make our way over to a raid den and enter the raid screen, selecting the option to raid with others. From here, opening the home menu, navigating to the system clock and forwarding it a day, we can return to the game and close the raid screen, having successfully forwarded the time in a way that Sword and Shield will recognize. Because we haven't left the area, the strong spawn that we knocked out hasn't had a chance to have its daily respawn. Finally, we save directly on top of their spawn point and reset the game. If done correctly, this will instantly spawn a Scizor that collides with us and starts an encounter as soon as we load into the game. With the shiny charm on this save file, each Scizor has a 1 in 1365 rate to be shiny, same as most of the eggs that we hatched back in Generation 5. We can tell that these aren't all the same Scizor because the gender occasionally changes, with the larger abdomen on female Scizor acting as a dead giveaway. With our instant encounter hunt set up, these resets are extremely fast, especially with the Switch 2 slashing the load times. But of course, as we near the finish line for this quest, the game has to throw us at least one more overodds curveball.
There we go. The sandstorm is raging. The Scizor is on screen. One moment. It is not the 27th. There we go. Now at level 60, Scizor's minimum HP is 154. We can hit him with one of these. Ah. Dang it. Oh, gotta reset. I was super intent on using that friend ball only. Dang it. Well, it broke out of both of my level balls. Yep, there goes all the Cramomatic Apricorn balls we made back when we caught Palkia. There we go. I was a little nervous with the Swords Dance boost, like if it used X Scizor and crit, we might have been in trouble, and I only brought one Pokemon to this fight for some reason. Well, there we go.
With Beans the Scizor in our collection representing the peak of British toast-based cuisine, instead of needing to evolve her, we can evolve one of our other 3 Scyther that weren't evolved in their home games. A metal coat can actually be found on Challenge Road near the entrance to Brawler's Cave. So with it and Brusquetta's capable scythes, we can trade to finally evolve her into a Scizor a mere 7 generations removed from the one she calls home. Moving into Sinnoh 2, Scyther is once again a version exclusive, at least in the wild. Because I only had Shining Pearl, I considered using the Masada method again to get a shiny Scyther egg and hatch it somewhere ridiculous like the Hall of Origin, but I figured this quest will likely be my only chance to want to talk about the Generation 8 version of the Pokéradar on this channel. In order to radar Scyther at all, I borrowed Brilliant Diamond from one of my chat regulars, Karma. We can actually obtain the National Pokédex and by extension the Pokéradar extremely early, only requiring a single gym badge so long as we've seen every Pokemon in the Sinnoh Pokédex and made it to Eterna City. This was actually true all the way back in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, so there's an idea for those who want to experience Generation 4 in a new way. Just trade over every Sinnoh Pokédex Pokemon after reaching Eterna and suddenly dual slot encounters and even radar exclusives become available for almost the entire playthrough. Unfortunately, because these remakes are so faithful, we'll have to play all the way until the post-game, as Scyther only appears at a minuscule 5% chance on Route 229, one of the last places the player gets access to in the entire game. It also appears in the Grand Underground, but with no radarable grass in sight down there, that wasn't really an option. By using powerful speedrunning strategies known as sending my starter to Pokemon Violet to immediately level them to 100, we reached the final routes without much difficulty. Using the money we acquired, we can stock up on Repels and Pokeballs, and now let's go ahead and lay out what's different about this version of the Pokéradar. Now most of the general best practices for the Poké-Radar in Generation 4 applies to Generation 8. Grass at each distance has a 53, 63, 73, or 83 chance to break the chain. Catching the previous encounter's Pokemon gives a flat 10% bonus to these chances, resulting in a 63, 73, 83, or 93% chance to continue respectively. This is a downgrade from the potential maximum of 98% in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, or 99.3% in X and Y, but unlike the original Generation 4 radar and more similar to the Generation 6 version, the plus 10% catch bonus persists even when using the radar again. So it beats out Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum's 88% chance to continue if the radar needs to be reset. Another similar but slightly different feature from the Generation 6 Poké-Radar is the presence of guaranteed perfect IVs at certain points in the chain. While Generation 6 guaranteed perfect IVs for every Pokemon in the chain past certain milestones, BDSP on the other hand is much less generous, only giving 1 perfect IV on the 20th encounter, 2 31s at 30, and 3 IVs at 40. Finally, there's 5 guaranteed perfect IVs at a whopping 100 chained encounters, but no other Pokemon during the chain will have guaranteed perfect IVs. Different from the other two, however, is that the chained Pokemon species is always forced to spawn in shaking patches. Instead of chains breaking by giving encounters with a different species, chains in BDSP break by simply no longer being there when the encounter ends. In general, it's best to be catching all the Pokemon, only going into shaking grass that is on the ring of 32 patches 4 tiles away. With each encounter having a 93% chance to continue the chain, stacking that up over 40 encounters gives approximately a 5% chance to reach the maximum 1 in 99 shiny patch spawn rate. BDSP's next departure from the previous radars is that these are the first games that will keep showing each shaking patch continuously rather than for a short animation. BDSP also no longer uses multiple shaking patch animations to denote which ones are correct to go into. Instead, there's a flat 1 in 128 rate for a shaking patch to have larger blades of grass coming off of it. These denote that the patch contains a Pokemon with its hidden ability and have no effect on the chance to continue your chain. Those very familiar with the Generation 4 Poké-Radar might recall that Pokemon in certain encounter slots were unobtainable if their slots were overwritten by radar exclusives. In order to prevent radar exclusives from erasing some species from the Poké-Radar entirely, ILCA made it so that when determining the first encounter of the chain, there's a 20% chance to not use the radar exclusives in the encounter table. Another staple of previous radars that has no effect on your chance to continue in BDSP is Edgegrass. In prior incarnations, the game would pick exactly 1 patch from the 8 1 tile away, 1 patch from those 2 tiles away, 1 from the patches 3 tiles away, and 1 from those 4 tiles away. This had the effect of making tiles not fully surrounded by other grass patches more dangerous, as if the game chose empty tiles for each ring, the chain would break. BDSP will always select grass tiles until it has 4, and can even select multiple tiles on the same ring, so there's no increased risk of a chain breaking by being on an edge. As for the other threats to breaking the chain, such as leaving the area, using the bike, encountering a Pokemon that wasn't from a shaking patch, entering a trainer battle, and so on, these can all still happen in the remakes, so make sure to keep the repel active and clear any trainers from the area. With the mechanics of this item laid out for a third and possibly final time, I was braced for a brutal grind to match our 5% encounter rate Scyther chain up to a 5% chance to reach 40 encounters. Let's go.
Yippee! Wahoo! Okie dokie, as Mario would say. Chain didn't even break. We could go for another one. Not that I need another one.
Somehow managing to assemble a 40 chain on our very first try, Cinnamon joins our collection with a BDSP origin mark. Flying to Canalave City, we can take a boat to Iron Island to meet Byron in his shack outside, obtaining a metal coat which we can use to evolve Cinnamon. Now, while Legends Arceus is another game where we can hunt Scizor directly, I'm not going to do that for two reasons. One, Scizor only appears in the wild in space-time distortions in the Alabaster Icelands. The ideal conditions for this hunt would be to have the distortion weather from the climax of the game, which makes space-time distortions slightly more likely to occur at the first possible time slot. It also has the added benefit of keeping the Oshawott line out of the Iceland's distortion pool, as we're still at the point before catching Dialga and Palkia. But even with an ideal distortion hunting setup and the perfect Pokédex shiny rate of about 1 in 1024, it would still take on average about 114 hours to get enough distortions to reach 1024 encounters. The second reason is that I already hunted a shiny Alpha Scizor from Legends Arceus as part of my shiny bingo card last year, and it went so far over odds that I frankly don't want to hunt another one.
Shiny Alpha Scyther? Let's go. Sorry to interrupt. Yep.
But since we've already evolved Loaf the former Alpha, we can take this opportunity to evolve Ogura from Let's Go Pikachu using a metal coat, and here in Hisui, no trade is required. And with a dozen Scizor down, there's only one more origin mark left, Scarlet and Violet, which are also the fourth set of games where Scizor can be hunted directly, spawning in the Indigo Disc DLC's Terraria. Now, these games are infamous for being able to print shinies, and so it would be a bit of an anticlimax for me to pop over to the Canyon biome, make a steel encounter power sandwich, and scoop up the first shiny Scizor I found. So taking a page from my Teary Mark Watchroll hunt, an easy way to bump up the rarity of our Paldean Scizor is to try and hunt for a cool mark. Learning from history, however, I am not about to go and embark on a single target personality mark hunt. Instead, I decided to go until I found something I felt was interesting enough. Our main sandwich recipe for this hunt is 3 servings of hamburger, 1 lettuce, and 1 tomato, alongside 2 of any type of Herba Mystica, except specifically sour and sweet for some reason, which gives catching power instead of encounter power. With Encounter Power Steel level 3, Scizor is the only thing that spawns in the southern reaches of the Canyon biome, apart from some fixed symbol encounters with Tyrogue, Elekid, and Scraggy that always show up in the same spots, allowing us to fly in a rough triangle shape and spawn hundreds of Scizor per sandwich. I did reset for an outbreak of Scizor in this area as well, so some of them will have the additional shiny rolls from that. But with everything set up and our nebulous marked Scizor goal in mind, we begin our hunt.
Real quick to find another shiny. Also marked. Ooh, actually. Okay, yeah, we found it. I really like that. Scizor the Arrogant. I don't know why, but that feels right.
With Prideful Mark Scizor joining us, I decided to name him Tostada, which isn't strictly a Spanish dish, but frankly Cuban tostadas are too delicious to pass up on putting their name on at least one Scizor. And since we don't need to evolve this last Scizor, we can finally evolve Torta from Pokémon Go. Dipping into my ample supply of metal coats from the item printer and sending him off to complete this incredible challenge. Spanning 9 generations and 13 games of origin, I now have a Scizor from every generation. Just in time for them to introduce a new origin mark with the release of Legend ZA next month. And for you smart Alex who didn't wait until the end of the video to comment about how I need to collect every ribbon on these Scizor, trust me, I'm working on it. The daily ribbons alone are going to take just under a month from BDSP with 2 games. But in the meantime, look forward to what we'll get up to with Scizor and Legend ZA when it comes out. And thanks for watching. Thank you.